The house was quiet now, or too quiet. The ticking clock in the living room echoed louder than ever, like a slow, measured heartbeat. I stood at the window, arms folded, staring at the rust-stained gate where my parents had last waved goodbye 12 years ago. They said they'd be back in 2. But promises are paper-thin when dreams are paved in gold. When I was 10, my parents made the biggest decision of their lives, and the most devastating of mine. They left me in the care of my grandmother in Lagos and flew to the United Kingdom. They said it was for our future. That they would work hard, send money, and come back once everything was settled. But settled became a myth, like bedtime stories they used to tell me. Phone calls turned from daily to monthly, then soon, barely at all. They sent money at first, enough to keep food on the table and the lights on. But my birthday passed unnoticed the 3rd year. By the 5th year, even Christmas was silent. I stopped waiting by the phone. I stopped writing emails. They didn't even come for grandma's funeral. Buddy. I was 22 now. A grown woman. The house they left behind had aged with me. Paint peeled off the corners, termites had claimed the old wardrobe, and rainwater had stained the ceilings with dark blotches. Still, I stayed. Not because I had nowhere else to go, but because it held the echoes of my childhood and my pain. Grandma raised me with a kind but firm hand. She taught me to be strong, to never wait for people who leave without turning back. When she passed, I didn't cry. Not because I wasn't sad, but because I'd cried out all my tears by then. Her burial was small, only the neighbors and a few church members came. 2 years after Grandma's death, I got a stable job in real estate. I worked my way up slowly, not with help, but with grit. Eventually, I realized the biggest asset I had was the very house my parents left behind. It was old, yes, but in a prime area now, a booming part of Lagos. Developers were scouting the street, offering large sums to buy properties. I got a cash offer of 170 million naira for the house. It was life-changing. A fresh start. I could buy a smaller house, invest, maybe travel the world like they did. I could finally erase their shadow over my life. I listed the house. And then, as if summoned by the scent of profit, they called. Zainab, please don't sell the house, my mother's voice quivered on the other end of the WhatsApp call. It was the first time I'd seen her face in 4 years. My father sat beside her, thinner than I remembered, his beard now completely grey. Why? I asked flatly. You've lived in London for 12 years. What use is the house to you? It's still home, my father said, avoiding my eyes. No, it's not. It was my home. You gave it up. There was a long pause before my mother leaned forward, her eyes glassy. We are coming back. Things haven't been easy. Your father lost his job. I've been sick. We need a place to return to. Please, don't sell it. I didn't feel pity. I felt numb. After everything. Now they remembered they had a daughter. Now they wanted the same roof they abandoned. They had gone abroad chasing status and dreams, living as second-class citizens in someone else's country. Now the house they left behind had become their parachute. I ended the call without a word. The next day, I received an email. It was from a lawyer in London, and apparently, my father had tried to claim ownership of the house. I laughed out loud. The documents were in my name. Grandma had made sure of that before she passed. Legally, morally, and emotionally, it was mine. Still, the guilt crept in. What if I was being too harsh? What if they truly had no place to go? But then, I remembered my 12th birthday, when I cried myself to sleep waiting for a call that never came. The PTA meetings they never attended. The hospital visit when I had malaria and Grandma sold her gold earrings to pay for injections. I remembered all the moments I needed them, and they weren't there. That night, I sat on the floor of the living room, running my fingers across the dusty tiles. In the corner was a faded photograph, me at age 7, in between them, smiling, not knowing what was coming. They had their reasons. They chased a better life. But they never looked back to check if I was okay. And now that their wings were clipped, they wanted to return to a nest they abandoned. I had to make a choice. Sell the house and move on. Or keep it, and let them back into my life, under a roof built on memories I survived alone. I stared at the buyer's contract again. All it needed was my signature. But something deeper held me back. Not because I wanted them back. But because I wanted answers. I booked a flight to London. If they had the courage to leave, they should have the courage to face me. The air in London was cold and indifferent, much like the parents I came to confront. I hadn't told them I was coming. I wanted to see their truth, not a version dressed up for pity. The address on the lawyer's letter led me to a grey, crumbling council flat in East London, surrounded by peeling walls and silence that hummed like regret. I knocked once. The door creaked open after a minute, revealing my mother, frail, smaller than I remembered, wrapped in a threadbare shawl. Her eyes widened, not in joy, but in disbelief. Zainab. She reached out, but I stepped back. I'm not here to hug or cry. I want answers. My father emerged from the shadows of the living room, walking slowly, leaning on a cane. His face told stories I hadn't heard, of exhaustion, of faded ambition, of loss. But I didn't soften. Not yet. I waited 12 years, I said, voice steady. 12 birthdays. Grandma died, and you didn't even call. We were ashamed, he said quietly. The life we imagined here, it didn't happen. I worked in warehouses, your mother cleaned houses. We thought we'd save enough quickly. But life, it slipped away. I scanned their tiny apartment, damp stains on the ceiling, a small heater in the corner, and an untouched bowl of rice on the table. The luxury life they left for was a lie. But their silence. That was a choice. You abandoned me, I said. And now you want to return to a house you didn't fight to keep alive. Why? Tears welled in my mother's eyes. Not for the house. For a second chance. With you. I didn't reply. I couldn't. That night, I stayed in a hotel. My head wrestled with guilt, anger, and the strange pity I didn't want to feel. I didn't hate them. But forgiveness isn't free. It has a cost: trust, time, and truth. By morning, I had made a decision. Back in Lagos, I stood once again at the gate of the house, our house. The one they left behind. Only this time, I wasn't the same abandoned girl hoping they'd come back. I was the woman who had survived, built herself, then faced them without flinching. The buyer was still interested. The paperwork still lay on my desk. But instead of signing, I sat down and drafted 2 documents. The first was a legal lease agreement. They could stay in the house for a year if they returned rent-free. But I would remain the sole owner. No ownership claims. No disputes. The second was a letter. Not an apology. A truth. You left me, but I didn't break. You forgot me, but I remembered everything. I don't know if I can forgive you yet, but I don't want vengeance. I want peace. If you still want a place to rest, the door will open. But not to the past, to the people you must become if you want a future with me. I sent both to them. Weeks passed. They didn't respond immediately. Then, one day, a small envelope arrived by post. Inside was a photograph, my parents, standing outside a Nigerian consulate, holding temporary travel documents. And a note in my father's handwriting. We are not coming back for the house. We are coming back for you. Sometimes, life doesn't offer clean endings. Sometimes, wounds don't fully close, they become scars. But scars remind us that we healed. I didn't sell the house. Not because they asked me not to. But because I chose not to forget who I am. And maybe, just maybe, that choice is the beginning of something better.